for local autonomy. Article 10, Section 2 states that territorial and political subdivisions shall enjoy local autonomy. In recent jurisprudence, however, the practical space for local choice has narrowed. In the Mercidor Fishing Corporation ruling of the Supreme Court upheld a lower court ruling that invalidated key fisheries code provisions reserving municipal waters to municipal fishers, which effectively opened municipal waters to commercial fishing, with significant implications for coastal LGU's regulatory reach and for small-scale or artisanal fisher folks. A motion for reconsideration has been filed, but the message to LGUs is already stark. National baselines can displace local preference unless the Constitution speaks more clearly. In ULAP's position paper that it submitted to the Supreme Court, we said that the case cannot just be summarily dismissed, and we reiterated the need to uphold local autonomy, as well as the legal basis for the buffer zone, that is the 15-kilometer municipal water delineation. In another case decided recently by the Supreme Court, involving the province of Occidental Mindoro and Agusan Petroleum and Mineral Corporation, the Supreme Court struck down a province-wide ban on large-scale mining, holding that blanket prohibitions contradict the Philippine Mining Act and cannot override national policy. The court clarified that LGUs may evaluate projects case by case, but cannot impose an absolute 25-year ban. This matters to us because autonomy is not abstraction. It is the operating space that lets local government units respond to differentiated risks and align land use, health, and social protection with real conditions on the ground. When autonomy is vague, preemption fills the vacuum. Mandates and personal impositions follow without commensurate financing, and accountability blurs national intent and local capacity. However, ULAP also acknowledges that the constitutional amendment is not indispensable to achieve this. If the Constitution is to be amendment, ULAP proposes that the Congress considers clarifying and deepening the autonomy clause, especially in line with current direction towards devolution, because as we know, national government has now moved towards devolution, for example, of school building constructions, devolution of some infrastructure works. And so if that is the direction that the national government is pursuing, then there is really a need for us to also strengthen local autonomy. In that sense, we respectfully recommend looking at the Article 10 to make autonomy genuine and meaningful, anchored on subsidiarity and cooperation. For instance, adding a clear statement rule on preemption. National laws may displace local ordinances only through an express statement of preemption and only when necessary to address a demonstrable national interest. Relative to local autonomy, of course, our LGUs will also find value in inserting a clause prohibiting the imposition upon LGUs of new functions, standards, or personal requirements without commensurate or verifiable funding sources, or what we call unfunded mandates. The national mandate must identify its financing mechanism and transition period. To be clear, these are among the options we are studying. Some goals may also be achieved without amending the Constitution through a calibrated package of organic local government code revision or amendment, targeted revisions to sectoral statutes, stronger intergovernmental relation mechanisms, and budget and administrative safeguards against unfunded mandates. We will submit our ranked board-approved recommendations after the National Executive Board meeting of the ULAP tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Barrios, for stating the position of ULAP in this hearing. Now, we now would like to state that we have finished listening to our resource persons. Let me just state that for those who are not able to come, they have sent letters or called the committee that they will be submitting their position papers on December, supposed to be 8, but it's holiday, December 9. And then we will prepare the matrix for everyone, especially for the members, to make decisions on how to move forward. At this point, we call on our members, the House members, to propound their questions. So I will start with Chairman Benny Abante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things I heard from one of our resource speakers is that there is no need to revise the 1987 Constitution. But upon hearing the comments and the statements of the resource speakers, I have seen there are many infirmities of the 1987 Constitution. And also, thereby being explained here that there are a lot of provisions that ought to be included in the Constitution of which perhaps we could be able to have today. So therefore, the 1987 Constitution should also be revised in some areas. In fact, our resource speaker that said that there is no need for revision even mentioned to us human rights. And I am the chairman of the Committee on Human Rights in the Congress. And I'm so glad he mentioned that. Social provisions, poverty. The thing is, the 1987 Constitution is a good Constitution. In fact, I'm following it. Being a man that believes in following the Constitution, I am abiding by the Constitution. But our Constitution is made by man. Man is not perfect. Marami pa ring nakakalimutan tayong ilagay. For example, you made mention of the anti-dynasty bill na hindi na kinakailangan pag-usapan dito sa Kongreso, pero pwede pag-usapan sa Constitutional Convention yan. Alright? Pinag-usapan din natin dito yung tinatawag, you made mention about the anti-dynasty, yung dynasty, mangyayari din yan sa pagpili natin ng mga delegates. So therefore, kung yan, iniisip natin, we welcome the amendments to the call of Congress for a constitutional convention so that hindi pwedeng maging delegado ang mga kamag-anak ng mga politiko. Pwede natin pag-usapan yan. Pwede natin ilagay yan. Pwede natin i-amend yan. You see that? That's the reason why ang amin ditong ginawa, Mr. Chair, is that we are just calling for a constitutional convention sapagkat hindi na pinag-uusapan dito ang CONAS. Di ba? I mean, ako naniniwala din ako, CONAS can be biased. Constituent Assembly can be biased. Can be something that would not be welcomed by the people. Yet, the Constitutional Convention, for example, like the 1987 Constitution, number 1, the Constitutional Convention delegates were not elected. Please take note. They were not elected by the people. Oh, ito, i-elect ng tao eh. Number 2, the 1987 Constitution was promulgated during the revolutionary government of the president. Not when democracy is working now. Hindi nangyari yun nung araw. Ngayon, democracy is working. Oh, ngayon, pinag-uusapan natin, for example, Mr. Lacerna spoke of the flood control projects. I believe that the Constitution that will be promulgated this time by the Constitutional Convention can address corruption, can address the flood control corruptions happening right now. And by the way, if you would like to make an amendment to the Constitution of the Constitutional Convention as far as including the youth sector is concerned, we welcome that amendment, Mr. Chair. So, ito lamang ang masasabi ko for a while. That's the reason why, Attorney Mursod, although I accept all of what you said, and I would like to thank you for mentioning human rights and social justice. Kailangan po natin yun eh. You mentioned about the anti-dynasty bill. Ako, ipaglalaban ko din po yan na hindi kayo na kailangan. You see that? But we need to have this revision. So please, siguro, you could be able to explain further, Attorney Monsod, why is it that there is no need to revise the 1987 Constitution when you heard all of the resource speakers telling us that there's a lot of provisions that can be included in the Constitution if we ever have a constitutional convention today. Attorney Monsod. I'm asking a question, please, to Attorney Monsod.
Chairman Bonsod, there is a question from Chairman Abante to you. Can you state the question again?
Can you please explain further why you said that there is no need to revise the 1987 Constitution? Do you believe that the 1987 Constitution is complete and there are no infirmities in it?
There should be some revisions, but not a new constitution or a total change in the constitution. Because, let's put it this way, today, the people feel that they have been lied to by government. That's why you have all kinds of
Mr. Chair,
corruption.
may I interject? Mr. Chair,
We just also have the chair.
Baka makalimutan ko eh, no? You said that the people have been lied to. The people has always been lied to. Attorney Monsod, since the 1987 Constitution, the people has always been lied to. Now you tell me, where was the people not lied to?
Well,
Attorney Monsod, tell me, when was the people not lied to? Oh, even before the 1997 Constitution, you were attacking the former President Marcos' rule. Oh, were the people not lied to during the time of President Marcos Sr.? Or were they lied to?
well, as I was saying, the 1987 Constitution, EDSA was two things. One is to restore democracy, and two is a new social order. Now, every administration since EDSA have failed in that promise. Every administration. And I'm not saying one or the other. But this what has been happening here since Duterte's time up to now, because before them, certainly there was corruption. That's the reason why over 50 years, from 1960 to 1910, 50 years. In 1910, we were the leaders in Asia in per capita income. Leaders below us, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. 50 years later, we're at the bottom of per capita income. Why is that? Why is that? Because I'm sorry to say, our governments have been controlled by a feudalistic system of government. And until we dismantle that, and we have a new generation of leaders who know how it is to be poor, we will not have real democracy. Now, how can we do that? How can we make sure, how can we change things? The signs are there, right? Look at what happened just in the last few elections. That, number one, many dynasties are no longer in power. Number two, there were a group, many young mayors in the country who were voted for their competence and their incorruptibility. And we know that, right? Now, also, what happened is those during the pandemic, those who had the means helped those who were in need. Now, what does this show us? Today, we're always looking at, who can be the angel of hope that's going to transform our country from above. Because as you said, and I agree with you, all the administrations have failed. So here we are always talking about sino kaya kandidato na presidente, assuming that, oh boy, transformation from above down. Transformation in a country should be from the bottom up. If you look at what happened during the pandemic, how new young politicians are being elected and so on, there are already signs from the people. That's why, sir, to me the most important elections in this country is the barangay elections. And we on the elite, should go around, organize the poor in this country and say, you have the sovereign power. How much of 54% or something of the voters are from the poor? They should use that power. Because to me, that's where we should start. I agree with all your premise. We have to change the poor, by the way. They are not going to go into the streets anymore when there is a battle between two elite, right? So the solution really, over the long run, is to have a generation of leaders who know how it is to be poor. First, barangay. Second, 3 years more, municipalities. Third, 3 years more, provincial. And then after that, we will have this new generation and we will have a real democracy in this country and not just a fiction of it.
Mr. Chair, let me continue on. No? I'm so glad that Tony Monsod is already a prophet, telling us of what the future will hold. In reality, it cannot be so. This is real talk. For example, nabanggit ninyo, nung araw, number 1 tayo. Ngayon, huli na tayo. Ito, nagbago ba ang korupsyon? Hindi. Even the US today, a very powerful country, is dealing with corruption. Just the other week, a representative, a woman representative in Congress in the US, was arrested because she stole $5 million. Is that not corruption? In China, pinagmamalaki ng China, sila ay talagang mayaman. Kaya nga binubuli tayo dito eh. Hindi ba? Death penalty has been declared to an official in China. Let me tell you this, Attorney Monsod, whether we are rich or poor, because human being is human being, corruption will always be there. You see, the love of money will always be there. Now you're telling us about poverty. Nasaan po kayo? When Cory Aquino became president, and most of the poor people invaded Manila and Parañaque and Las Piñas and took over the coastal road. Anong pong ginawa ni President Fidel Ramos? Tinanggal niya yan. Anong ginawa ng next president? Anong nilagay doon? Casino. Casino. Bakit casino? In this country, whether we do not become very wealthy, yet, napakaraming lupa sa bansang ito na walang tao. Every Filipino family can have a piece of land and a building if they want to. Attorney Monsod, Now, you believe in checking poverty? What did the 1987 Constitution do to the poor? Nagbago ba ang poverty sa Pilipinas? Until now, 40% of our people are below the minimum wage line. Hindi. Naniniwala ba kayo na mga ibang mahirap sa Pilipinas?
A lot of people do that. That's why I said in my talk na a lot of people blame the Constitution for the situation today.
Mr. Chair, I'm not blaming the Constitution. No, I'm not blaming the Constitution. I just said about the Constitution because you said that the 1987 Constitution does not need any revision. Samantalang narinig nyo ang sinabi ng mga resource speakers natin na maraming dapat na baguhin sa ating Constitution. Please take note, naniniwala din kayo dyan. You became a constitutional commissioner, that the basis of the laws of this land is the Constitution. And we are not referring to the people, we are referring to the laws of the land. This government is not ruled by the people, it is ruled by laws. Hindi po ba? Yun ang paniwala natin.
Well,
That will be the last question from Chairman Labante. You please have an answer, yes. After your answer, we'll recognize one of the authors to ask questions.
Can I just,
Attorney,
just mention-
Congressman Panaligan.
can I just mention something, sir?
Yes, please proceed, Chairman.
You know, I was the one who organized NAMFED against Marcos. And I was the one who organized Lente so that later lawyers can do that. I have been lawyering for farmers and urban poor for 38 years. I gave up going to business and so on. I've been, and these are my findings, sir, if you don't mind. My findings are this. The hope of this country is for us to elect from the poor, starting at the barangay, because that is complies with the principle of solidarity, which relates to nationhood, and subsidiarity, that the power should be as close to the people as possible. Those, for example, promoting feudalism, you're creating an entire level of government at the regional level, which is farthest from the people. Now, so, my only point, my experience is this. I am a believer in the bureaucracy. I think there are many good people in the bureaucracy, and sometimes they're taken away, fed with corruption. This is my experience as chairman of the COMELEC. I was appointed because it was the first synchronized elections, and it would have, we were waiting for 25 years for a peaceful transfer of power. This is the elections of 1992. So I went around the provinces, and I told the people of COMELEC, you have a reputation of not knowing how to count, but I will not change any one of you. I work exactly with the same people appointed during the Marcos time. And you know, I said, all I want from you is the gift of free, fair, and regular and credible elections in 1992, so we will have a peaceful transfer of power for the first time in 27 years. And they delivered. The people of Marcos delivered. Today, when I have problems, for example, with the goons of say San Miguel trying to build a tourism in Palawan, I could call some people I know at the PNP, so I did, and they called up. President Commander called, sir, what can I do? I said, get rid, please, of the goons who are always oppressing the indigenous peoples when they are not even armed. And it happened. It happened. Today we have a problem in Bugsuk. Why? Because Marcos in 1974 gave Bugsuk of 10,000 hectares to Landing Cojuangco in exchange for 1,000 in Pangasinan and Tarlac. And that's a big problem. In Aquino in 2014 issued a notice of coverage for 5,000 of those properties. The present DAR reversed that decision, and we're fighting now. That's what we're against. But fortunately, there are good people and bad people in government, and the difference between good and bad, sir, is sometimes permeable, in my experience. Good people do bad things. Bad people do good things. So we have
Yeah.
together. We have to look for the people who can work.
Thank
with
you.
us.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairman. And before we proceed, let me just acknowledge the former Secretary General of the House of Representatives, Reggie Velasco. He's with us. Thank you for coming. Yeah. And now let me, before going to Congressman Penaligan, we have some words from our author and probably some questions. Deputy Speaker Ronnie Puno.
I just have some questions regarding the need for coming up with a competent convention if we are to have one. I address this question to Chairman Monsod. No? The 1987 Constitution was composed of very competent commissioners. I think that it is acknowledged that that assembly was one of the better assemblies, no, that have been convened in our country. This assembly was, I believe, appointed by the President. The prior constitutional conventions actually had delegates that were elected. So may I ask, Mr. Chairman, do you think that appointing members of a convention is advisable if we want to get really competent delegates to review our Constitution?
Sorry.
The question is, would you recommend, would you agree that in the selection of delegates to in case you have a constitutional convention, that some may be appointed? That is the question. Because clearly there has to be elections, but there were also proposals this morning for some of the delegates to be appointed. What is your view on that?
I think, sir, that first of all, that there is no need for a constitutional convention today. I like the proposals of Congressman Puno, in which he says we should clean it up. Of course, we don't have a perfect constitution, and it's a good idea, right? One of them, of course, is the question of separate or joint vote in the case of Section 1 of the amendments of the Constitution. We have already admitted that there was a fault on the part of the Constitutional Commission on this. However, there have been already talks since, 10 or 14 years ago about this issue that was a mistake on the part of the Constitution. And those who still want to amend the Constitution, it's not necessary. Because those of you in the House, have you read Section 145 of the rules of the House?
Mr. Chairman, may I put the question in a different way, no? Mr. Chairman, the members of the Constitutional Commission were appointed by President Aquino. That's correct, right? So my question, I guess, would be: do you believe that if a constitutional commission again were to be organized, that appointment is a better approach to bringing the members together than electing them?
Yeah, I think appointments would be okay. But I think my point is you don't have to go into a convention now. That's my point. And
Yes, we understand that already, Mr. Chairman. I think that has been made very clear. But I just want to get the wisdom of the chairman, having been a member of the Constitutional Commission. And I think unlike the other bodies that reviewed the Constitution, this commission was completely appointed. So I just wanted to get a verification from Chairman Monsod whether he feels that this was the correct approach.
yeah, well,
Chairman Bonsod?
I have a little note here, for example. Of the 48 members of the Constitution, 6 were former senators, 5 were justices, 2 became chief justices. We had 3 Muslims. We have 1 from the indigenous people. We had 3 congressmen from the opposition. We have a Speaker of the House, Laurel. There were church people and evangelists. There were only 7 lawyers. There were 3 from media, 1 from cinema, Ria Broca, 1 general from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, 2 economists, 3 on labor, and 2 educators. Certainly, there may be ways to appoint in order to complete the balance of the members of the commission. But please think about amendments to the Constitution, because that's the advice to us. For example, when there were when the experts were invited here in 2016, they said it's better if you already have a constitution to just amend or change the honest errors there, but to totally change the new and find a new constitution is not a solution.
Thank you, Chairman. Now we'd like to recognize Congressman Panaligan for his comments.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a reaction to the interesting exchange between Congressman Abante and Chairman Monsod. So, Chairman Monsod said that there is no need to write a new constitution, only to amend or perhaps revise the constitution. Okay? Well, of course, we leave that to the wisdom of the Constitutional Convention. If ever a CONCON will be convened, will be called, then the CONCON can either introduce amendments in certain provisions of the Constitution or revise some provisions or totally adopt a new charter, for the people. So, after all, that charter will be submitted to the people in a plebiscite. And since that sovereignty resides in the people, then it's up to them if they want an entirely new constitution. Chairman Monsod also said that we should develop new leaders, young leaders, rather than discarding the present constitution. I agree with him. And I believe that we have seen in the past, especially from the ranks of local governments, we have promising leaders, mayors, governors. But of course, it will take time, perhaps generations, to develop new leaders and to make them to be able to take over the entire government. It will take generations. So, but of course, our problems are urgent. Our problems now cry for immediate solutions. And also, even if we have young and promising leaders, bright leaders from the city halls, from the capitals, the question is, can they manage to win and national offices? Can they win in the Senate, for example? Can they win in other significant national positions, considering that I believe that our constitutional structures, our political system is not conducive for young leaders, but without privilege, without money, for example, without resources to gain political power. They may be brilliant, they may be promising, they may be people of integrity, but from our experience, they cannot win in the Senate, for example. It would be very difficult for them to win in a national election, national positions like the Senate, and of course, even in the presidency. So I believe that while there is a need, I agree that there is a need to develop young leaders, we should also see to it that our constitutional structures, our political system is conducive for the growth of these young leaders. And I believe that if there are provisions in the Constitution that should be revised, it's the political structures, no? Not so much on the economic structures. Although I agree also that economic models should not be included in the Constitution, because economic models, economic trends, they change with the time. Our Constitution, 1970 Constitution, for example, 1930 Constitution, it was the said charters were formulated in an era of nationalism. No? That's why protectionist. No? But in the 1990s, 2000s, we saw the prevalence of the globalization, liberalization. Okay? But after the pandemic, we can discern a shift back to protectionism. No? So my point is that economic models should not be enshrined in the Constitution, because it will inhibit future policymakers. So they will not be able to respond to shifting trends in economics. For me personally, I am in favor of nationalistic provisions of the Constitution. I believe in national industrialization. But I believe that it should not be enshrined in the Constitution. What we should revise are the political structures. Our political system is dysfunctional. So, kung meron man dapat baguhin is a system of government. And the fastest mode, of course, if only the people trust Congress, is Constituent Assembly. But that is next to impossible now. So, CONCON, perhaps, is the best mode to amend the Constitution.
Thank you, Congressman Panaligan. We go first to Dr. Rita Carlos and then to Chairman Monson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to give some overview, listening to all the comments around the table. I think there is a need for a unity in the new constitution that will be drafted by whichever body. Why? Because a constitution will have to stitch together all the sections therein and will have to be governed or underpinned by a philosophy of governance. In other words, Mr. Chair, you cannot have sections that are colliding with each other because the philosophies are, they are colliding. And therefore, there must be a unity. I like what Congressman Panaligan said. You change the political structure and the rest of the substructures will follow. This is not, to denigrate economic provisions. But I always say, as a political scientist, I know that it's the political really, which is the fulcrum of all political power. So when you change the Constitution, revision, you change the power configuration therein. But it must be stitched together. It must be crocheted by a philosophy of governance. Hindi pwedeng you're shooting here and there. Tapos nagbubungguan siya. That's the reason why, and to the question of Congressman Puno kanina, siguro maganda rin yung i-appoint siya. No? I've never thought about it really. But the vetting procedure should be very strict. And because I'm a political scientist, I would lean more towards more political scientists in the commission. Why? Because a political scientist is trained in the tradition of science. In other words, however emotion you might put into your aspirations, your advocacies, data is king, which means whatever empirical evidence is there, then that should be followed. Say if the empirical evidence tells you that, you don't need term limits, you don't need political dynasties, they are not the predictor variables. The predictor variables are somewhere else. So let's put science in all this. And I agree, Mr. Chair. The emotion is there, all right. But I think the science should also be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carlos. So we now go to the last comment of the chairperson, and then we'll ask the members if they have more questions, and then we can probably call this a day. Yes, Chairman Monsod.
Sir, I just wanted to say that when we're talking about the Constitution, as if that's the solution. I think the solution is let us implement the Constitution. Now, when you, for example, talk about unless otherwise provided by law, it's a very dangerous proposal because it's a wholesale transfer of power from the Constitution to the Congress, for example, on foreign ownership. Once inserted, the constitutional provisions become meaningless, and the door is opened wider to transactional legislation, to which corrupt politicians and greedy business are very adept. The insertion is insidious because it is made to appear as a harmless, since it only gives Congress flexibility to determine the actual percentages at the appropriate time. But the change is made only by ordinary law, with much lesser House and Senate votes, and without need of a vote of the people in the plebiscite. Incidentally, in terms of numbers, when we talk about changes now in the Constitution, you need what? You need how many votes? About over 237 votes, 240 votes from the Senate, and how many? 70 or 18 from the Senate. With this insertion, you will need only about 80 congressmen and 7 senators, and that's what the people are suspicious about. Now, let me just close, sir, if I may. My first point is this. Are we agreed on the ends? Because if we don't agree on the ends, then our means will not be the same. And if we agree on the ends, which is to have a new social order, in other words, a democracy that works, which, by the way, is not a partisan political purpose, are we willing to pay the price for it? Especially if it is against our own self-interest. Are we willing to make sacrifices for love of country and for the poor? Because we are told sacrifice is the currency of love. My second point, when the social contract between the government and the people may be breaking down, like today, the community should take it among themselves to change the nature of the social contract. The pandemic, as I said before, had one big contribution to show us about community.
Chairman, can you just wind up, because we already heard about your transactional comments and so forth. So, yes.
I just want to give the example of Sinergia, where in 500 municipalities, where barangay captains are helping parents educate the children. My third point is already said, that I think the poor should exercise their power. My fourth point, democracy is about dialogue and compromise, and I already mentioned that there are good.
Already mentioned that.
And our country is in need of heroes today. Not the superheroism of Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or Ninoy Aquino, but as ordinary everyday heroes, described by author Philip Zimbardo as, quote, the courage to expose fraud when we see it or to say no to complicity in wrongdoing, or by the hardness to be different or difficult to do what is right when it's easier to conform.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So we take note of what you have stated. The others, we can submit that and will be put in our matrix. So with that, well,
Mr. Chair.
a final,
Mr. Chair, just I have one question.
question from the Congressman, and then we'll have Dr. Carlos.
I just would like to ask a question to Attorney Monsod, what he said a moment ago. Ang sabi niya kanina na hindi kinakailangan ng revision, pero hindi kailangan ng bagong konstitusyon. Yun ang sabi niya. So I was wondering, sino mag-i-revise sa old constitution kung hindi ang Constitutional Convention? Sapagkat sabi niya, hindi kailangan ang Constitutional Convention. So ang tanong ko, sino mag-i-revise? Kung hindi kailangan ng new constitution, who will revise the old constitution? Sapagkat inamin niya eh. He admitted that the 1987 constitution needs some revisions. With that, pagkatapos yung sagot nito, I also would like to ask Justice Carpio what he thinks of the statement said a moment ago by Attorney Monsod. Oo. Siya muna.
Read that question to our former associate, senior associate justice.
My
What is
question
the question
first.
to Justice Carpio?
My question first to Attorney Monsod. If you do not believe that there should be a constitutional convention and that there is no need for a new constitution, but you believe the 1987 constitution must be revised, who will revise? Yun ang unang tanong ko kay Attorney Monsod. And I would like also to ask that same question to Justice Carpio if he agrees with that.
But the question is, earlier, did you admit that there is a need to revise the Constitution? No or not? Is there a need to revise the Constitution or not?
There are changes that can be done. I like the proposal of Secretary of Congressman Puno. That there are things that can be done, but maybe not now, because now is not a bad place for that. And
So there is a need, but not now. Thank you. So that is the position of Chairman Monsod. We'll ask also now the same question. Is there a need to revise the Constitution? That is the question of our Congressman, Chairman Abante, to Justice Carpio.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my position is we should shift to a parliamentary system that requires revision. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you have, hey, last question from Congressman Panaligan.
Final point, Mr. Chair. I reiterate my stand that there is a need to review, whether to amend or revise or adapt a new charter. There is a need to review the present constitution. It has been 37 years, and I believe that our experience in the past 37 years should have taught us already about the flaws, the defects, or the shortcomings or the inadequacies of the Constitution. We are not blaming the charter for the present problem, no? Hindi po tayo misunderstand dyan. But a charter is also a blueprint, no? Nakaka-apekto po yan eh. Whether sa politika, sa economics, in our social life, may epekto yung ating basic charter. So, we should review that. Disclosure, in 1992 or 91, I wrote an article in a law journal, no? Why we should not amend the 87 Constitution. But that was 1992, 5 years. At the time, the current charter was only 5 years old. So my point at that time was that let's give it a chance to work. No? But after 37 years, I think that now is the time to revise the present charter. Hindi po naman yan sagradong dokumento, hindi po yan gospel na hindi pwedeng baguhin ng mga tao. So now is the time, no, to amend the present charter. Sabi nga ni Roscoe Pound, the law must be stable but it cannot stand still. Kaya panahon na po natin pag-usapan without emotionalism and sentimentalism.
Thank you very much, Congressman Aligan. For the last point, Dr. Carlos, and then we will thank everyone.
Just a very brief point. Counterintuitively, the term unless otherwise provided by law is really a channel for change. Why are we putting so much negative connotation to that phrase? When in fact, when you have a constitution, you are not able to foresee what the future looks like. Suppose you have an article there on generative AI. We don't know what the future looks like. So when you put a clause there, like unless provided by law, it's really a channel for recalibration, which you give to the legislature, whether it's unicameral or bicameral. So I don't think we should, treat that phrase so negatively, because it's really a channel for recalibration of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we would therefore would like to thank.
One.
I'll give Chairman Monsod one last point.
I just want to say,
It's a contrary position of Dr. Carlos. One last point.
I just want to say something. I think you can earn the trust of the people if you pass an anti-dynasty law and amend the party list system. If you do that, then you can do many things in changes in the Constitution.
Well noted. So on that note, we would like to thank all our resource persons. It has been very enlightening. We have the experts here and we have everyone. So thank you so much for your presence, and please submit your position papers so that it will be placed in the matrix. Thank you, my distinguished colleagues. Thank you, our valued resource persons. Thank you very much. Can you have a group picture? Yeah, for this batch. Thank you. We will go to the front for our picture taking. All right.